A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headaches.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com. Imagine you are watching a video of a guy explaining how to rebuild a vintage carburetor in English, but you hit a toggle, and suddenly he is speaking perfect, fluent Portuguese. Not just a voiceover, but the timing is right, the technical terms are accurate, and it feels, well, almost natural. Today's prompt from Daniel is about exactly that, YouTube's auto-dubbing feature and the massive, invisible machinery that makes it possible to collapse linguistic boundaries with a single click.
It really is one of those, the future is here, moments that people are just starting to take for granted. We have moved so far beyond the old days of clunky closed captions. Now, we are looking at a full-scale speech-to-speech pipeline. And by the way, just a quick bit of housekeeping before we dive into the guts of today's episode of My Weird Prompts is actually being powered by Google Gemini 3 Flash. It's writing our script today, which is fitting considering we're talking about high-level AI orchestration.
It's poetic, really. AI describing AI. But back to the dubbing. Daniel mentioned something funny. He was using the feature and noticed that sometimes a man on screen ends up with a woman's voice in the dub. It's a bit of a gender-swapping surprise. Is that just a glitch in the Matrix? Or is there a technical reason why the system loses track of who's who?
It's usually a byproduct of how these models are trained and how they identify speakers. In many early text-to-speech or TTS systems, the default, neutral, high-quality data often leaned female. Think of the early days of Siri or Alexa. When an AI system isn't specifically told this is a male speaker through a process called speaker diarization, it might just default to its most robust or clear synthetic voice profile. But that is changing fast as the pipeline becomes more integrated.
Right, because it's not just one giant translate button. When we talk about how this actually works, we're looking at what you like to call the digital sandwich, right? Or is YouTube doing something more sophisticated now?
The digital sandwich is the classic architecture, and it's a great place to start to understand the evolution. In a traditional sandwich, you have three distinct layers. Layer 1 is automatic speech recognition, or ASR. That's the ear of the AI. It listens to the English audio and turns it into a text transcript. Then, that text is passed to Layer 2, Neural Machine Translation, or NMT. This is the brain that converts English text to, say, Spanish or French. Finally, Layer 3 is text-to-speech, which is the mouth that reads that translated text aloud.
The problem with the sandwich, though, is that by the time you get to the mouth, you've lost all the flavor of the original speech. If I'm shouting or being sarcastic in the original audio, the ASR just sees the words. The translation layer just sees the text, and the TTS just reads the new text like a robot. It's technically accurate, but emotionally dead.
That is the loss of prosody. Problem. Prosody is the rhythm, stress, and intonation of speech. In a disconnected sandwich, the timing is a nightmare too. Spanish, for example, often uses 20 to 30% more words than English to convey the same idea. If the AI doesn't account for that, the Spanish dub will still be talking long after the person on screen has finished their sentence and moved on to something else.
So, does YouTube need us to provide subtitles to act as a roadmap for this? Daniel asked if human subtitles are a requirement for the magic to happen.
Technically, no. The ASR layer is perfectly capable of generating its own transcript from the audio. In fact, if you go into YouTube Studio as a creator, you'll see that the system often auto-generates captions before you even touch it. However, and this is a big, however, human-verified subtitles act as a ground truth. If you provide a clean, time-stamped SRT file, you are essentially giving the AI a perfect map. It doesn't have to guess if you said can't or can. It knows exactly what the words are and exactly when they start and stop. That makes the translation and the eventual dubbing significantly more accurate because the timing is already locked in.
It's like giving a hiker a GPS versus telling them to just follow the moss on the trees. Both might get you there, but one is going to involve a lot less wandering around in the woods. But what's interesting to me is the shift away from the sandwich toward end-to-end models. Are we at the point where the AI just hears English and speaks Spanish without that middle text step?
We are getting very close. These are called speech-to-speech translation models. Instead of converting audio to text, then text to text, then text to audio, these models map the acoustic features of the source language directly to the acoustic features of the target language. The advantage here is that you can preserve the original speaker's voice print, their tone, their excitement, even their accent. YouTube hasn't fully implemented a pure end-to-end system for everyone yet because it's computationally expensive, but they are absolutely moving in that direction with their recent auto lip sync announcements.
Wait, lip sync. So the AI is actually reanimating the speaker's mouth to match the new language. That sounds like a deepfake territory, but for productivity.
It essentially is a functional application of generative video. In early 2026, YouTube began rolling out a feature where the AI doesn't just change the audio, it subtly adjusts the pixels around the speaker's mouth so that the visual visemes, the mouth shapes, match the phonemes of the dubbed language. It removes that old Godzilla movie, feel where the lips are moving, but no sound is coming out, or vice versa.
That's wild. But let's talk about the voices themselves. Daniel noticed the gender mismatch, but he also asked about the trend toward more natural voices. I feel like we've moved past the Microsoft Sam era, but there's still a certain polished quality to AI voices that feels a bit too perfect.
You're touching on the shift from concatenative TTS to neural TTS. Old school concatenative systems literally stitched together tiny fragments of recorded human speech. It sounded choppy. Then came models like WaveNet, which used neural networks to generate the raw waveform of the audio from scratch. That gave us much smoother, more human-like voices. But the new frontier is zero-shot or few-shot voice cloning.
Which is what Spotify is doing with their podcast translation, right? I remember seeing that they were testing a feature where they take a clip of a host's actual voice and then use that voice print to generate the translated version. So it's still my voice, just speaking a language I don't actually know.
Precisely, and that's the gold standard. Instead of choosing from a library of 20 generic voices, 10 male, 10 female, the system analyzes your specific vocal characteristics. It looks at your pitch, your resonance, your typical speaking rate. Then it applies those characteristics to the synthesized speech. This solves Daniel's gender mismatch problem instantly because the AI isn't choosing a voice, it's reflecting the source.
It's fascinating that this is becoming a standard feature across the board. It's not just YouTube. You mentioned Spotify, but what about the rest of the landscape? Is the whole internet about to become multilingual by default?
It's looking that way. Netflix has been experimenting with AI-assisted dubbing for their smaller international titles, the stuff that wouldn't normally get a big budget for professional voice actors. And the tech is moving into live streaming too. There are startups building real-time translation layers for Twitch and Kick where a streamer can talk to their audience in English, and the viewers can choose to hear it in Japanese or German with only a few seconds of latency.
That brings up a massive question about the workflow. Daniel asked if we're seeing zero subtitle workflows. Basically, a set-it-and-forget-it system, where a creator uploads a raw file, and the AI handles the transcription, the diarization, the translation, and the dubbing, without a single human click in the middle.
We are already there in the professional prosumer space. If you look at the API stacks available right now, combining something like OpenAI's Whisper for transcription with DeepL for translation and 11 Labs for voice cloning, you can build a pipeline that does exactly that. You feed in a video, Whisper identifies that there are two people talking. That's the diarization part. DeepL translates their specific dialogue, and 11 Labs clones each of their voices to perform the dub. No human subtitles required. The AI generates its own internal subtitles to guide the process.
So, if I'm a content creator in 2026, do I even need a localization team anymore? Or is this going to turn into one of those situations where the AI gets 90% of the way there, but that last 10%, the cultural nuances, the slang, the jokes, still needs a human touch?
That's the tension of the last mile. AI is incredible at literal translation and standard speech. But if you're a creator who uses heavy slang, or if you're making jokes that rely on wordplay, the AI is likely to stumble. For example, a pun in English almost never works when translated literally into French. A human translator knows to swap that pun for a different joke that works in the target culture. An AI dubbing system, as it stands today, might just translate the literal words, and the joke falls flat.
I can see the AI dubbed version of me being very unfunny. Actually, some might say the human version of me is already there, but let's not give the listeners any ideas. What I find interesting is the data Daniel mentioned, the MIT Technology Review study from 2025, a 40% increase in watch time from non-native audiences. That's not just a nice-to-have feature. That's a grow your business by nearly half feature.
It turns every creator into a global media mogul. Think about educational content. If you are a world-class physics teacher in Jerusalem, your market used to be limited to people who speak your language. Now, your market is the entire planet. That 40% increase isn't just people clicking on the video, it's people actually finishing it because they can finally understand the nuances of what you're saying without straining to read captions while watching a complex demonstration.
It changes the visual real estate of the video too. If you don't have to stare at the bottom third of the screen to read subtitles, you can actually watch the content. For technical tutorials or gaming videos, that's huge. You can't watch a guy show you how to code while your eyes are glued to the subtitles.
And YouTube is doubling down on this with multi-language thumbnails. This was a big update recently. It's one thing to have a dubbed audio track, but if the storefront, the thumbnail, and title is still in English, a Spanish speaker might never click on it in the first place. Now, YouTube allows creators to upload different thumbnails for different languages. So when the algorithm serves your video to someone in Mexico City, they see a Spanish title and a Spanish thumbnail. They click and the audio is already playing in Spanish. From their perspective, it's a Spanish video.
It's the total localization of the user experience. But let's get into the weeds of the subtitle first versus audio first debate. You mentioned that human subtitles are like a GPS for the AI. If I'm a creator today and I want the best possible dubs, what should my workflow look like? Do I just trust the auto dub, or do I need to be more hands-on?
If you want professional results, the subtitle first approach is still the winner. Here is why, when you edit your subtitles, you are essentially editing the future dub. If the AI transcriptions mishears a technical term, let's say it hears silicon, but you said silicone and you don't fix that in the subtitles, the dubbing engine is going to say the wrong word with absolute confidence. By fixing the text first, you ensure the brain of the system has the right information before it sends instructions to the mouth.
So, the workflow is upload, let the AI generate a transcript, go in and fix any hallucinations or technical errors in the text, and then hit the generate dub button.
And the most important thing a creator can do actually happens before they even upload. It's the pre-processing phase. AI dubbing engines struggle with background noise, overlapping speech, and heavy reverb. If you have two people talking over each other, the diarization, the part that assigns voices to people, can get confused. That's probably where Daniel saw that gender mismatch. If a man and a woman are talking at the same time, the AI might get its wires crossed and assign the woman's voice profile to the man's dialogue segment.
So, clean audio is the secret sauce. If you give the AI a high-quality, dry vocal track with no background music at the start, it has a much easier time isolating the speech. It's like trying to translate a conversation in a quiet library versus a loud construction site.
And we're seeing tools now that can actually demix audio. Creators can use AI to strip out the background music and sound effects, leaving just a crystal clear vocal track for the dubbing engine to work on. Once the dub is generated, they can lay the music back in. This prevents the ducking effect, where the music gets weirdly muffled every time the AI speaks.
Let's look at the broader implications for the industry. Daniel asked if this is going to replace human localization. We've talked about the last mile and cultural nuances, but what about the professional voice actors? If I'm a guy who makes a living dubbing English movies into German, am I looking for a new career in 2026?
It's a massive shift, no doubt about it. For high-end AAA Hollywood movies, humans aren't going anywhere yet. The performance of a great actor, The tiny cracks in the voice, the emotional breathing, the specific artistic choices is still incredibly hard for AI to replicate perfectly. However, for the middle of the market corporate training videos, news reports, documentaries, and YouTube content, the AI is becoming good enough and cheap enough that it's hard to justify a human studio session.
It feels like the translator role is evolving into an AI editor role. Instead of doing the work from scratch, you're overseeing the AI's work. You're the person who goes in and says, "Hey, that joke doesn't work in German. Let's change the text of this segment." And then you let the AI regenerate that specific line.
It's a transition from labor intensive to judgment intensive. You're using your human expertise to steer the machine. And for many people in the developing world, this is an incredible equalizer. If you're a creator in a country with a smaller linguistic footprint, you can now compete on the global stage. You can produce content in your native language and have it automatically localized for the 4 or 5 biggest languages on Earth.
It's essentially a babblefish for the internet. But what about the uncanny valley? Even with the lip syncing and the voice cloning, is there a point where it just feels off? Like, I'm watching a person, but I know it's a machine talking. Does that affect how we trust the information?
That's a deep psychological question. There is definitely a synthetic fatigue that can set in. If every video you watch has that slightly too perfect AI cadence, you might start to crave the imperfection of a real human voice. But for most functional content, how to fix a sync, how to use a software feature, the value of the information outweighs the weirdness of the delivery.
I wonder if we'll start to see AI watermarks for audio. Like a little icon in the corner that says, "This audio is AI generated," so you know you're not hearing the original person. YouTube has already started implementing disclosure requirements for altered or synthetic content that looks or sounds real.
They have to, especially with the rise of deepfakes. If you're watching a political leader speak, you need to know if you're hearing their actual words or translation that might have been subtly manipulated. Even a single not or never being added or deleted in a translation can change the entire meaning of a geopolitical statement.
Which brings us back to Daniel's point about the tech being impressive, but having those minor concerns. A gender mismatch is funny when it's a tech review. It's a lot less funny if it's a legal deposition or a medical tutorial where clarity is everything.
The precision is getting there, though. What's really wild is how these models are starting to handle code switching. That's when a speaker flips between 2 languages in the same sentence. Older systems would just break. Modern ASR models, like the latest versions of Whisper or Google's own internal models, can detect the language switch mid-sentence, translate both parts correctly, and maintain the flow.
It's a far cry from the digital sandwich days we talked about in those older episodes. I remember when we were marveling at the fact that an AI could even recognize a heavy accent. Now, it's recognizing the accent, translating it, and reperforming it in a different language with the same accent preserved in the target tongue. It's layers on layers.
And the speed. We talked about the death of latency before. The time it takes to go from upload to dubbed video has dropped from hours to minutes. For some short-form content, it's almost instantaneous. You upload a short or a reel, and by the time it's processed for high definition, the dubs are already ready to go.
So, what's the takeaway for the average person listening to this? If you're a creator, you should probably go into your YouTube studio today and check your settings. Most people don't even realize they might have these features waiting for them.
Step 1. Check your original video language, setting. If that's wrong, the whole pipeline fails before it even starts. Step 2. Look at your permissions. You can actually choose which languages you want to allow auto-dubbing for. And step 3, experiment with a few videos. Upload high-quality subtitles for one and let the AI go raw on another. See if you notice the difference in accuracy.
And for the viewers, keep an eye on that gear icon. We're moving toward a world where the original language of a video is just a suggestion. You'll be able to consume the entire world's knowledge in whatever language you're most comfortable with. It's a massive win for accessibility, especially for people with hearing impairments or those learning a second language.
It's also a win for information arbitrage. There is so much incredible content being made in languages that most of us don't speak. Think about high-end manufacturing techniques in Germany or cutting-edge consumer electronics reviews in Japan. Suddenly, that knowledge is unlocked for everyone.
It's like the internet is finally living up to its promise of being a global village. Though, I have to say, I'm still waiting for the AI that can translate sloth into a language humans can understand. I feel like most of my nuances are getting lost in translation.
I think your nuance is mostly just a request for a nap, Corn. I don't think we need a neural network to figure that one out.
Hey, napping is a complex physiological state. It requires precision. But you're right, the tech is catching up to the dream. It's not perfect. Daniel's gender-swapping voices prove that, but the trajectory is clear. We're moving toward a seamless, multilingual web where the language barrier is something we'll have to explain to our kids as a weird historical quirk.
Back in my day, we had to read text on the screen if we wanted to understand a guy in Korea. It's going to sound like telling them we used to have to wait for pictures to download line by line over a phone cord.
All right, before we wrap this up, Herman, any final nerd-out moment on the technical side? What's the one thing that blew your mind while you were looking into the 2026 updates?
It's the cross-modal attention mechanisms. In the latest models, the AI isn't just looking at the audio, it's watching the video while it translates. It sees that you're pointing at a specific object, and it uses that visual context to choose the right word in the target language. If you point at a bank of monitors, it knows you don't mean a financial institution. That level of visual spatial awareness in a translation model is a massive leap forward.
That is actually incredible. It's seeing the world to understand the words. Well, on that note, I think we've covered the how, the why, and the what's next of the auto-dubbing revolution. Thanks for the prompt, Daniel. It's a great reminder of how fast the ground is shifting under our feet.
It really is. And big thanks to our producer, Hilbert Flumingtop, for keeping the gears turning behind the scenes.
And a huge shout out to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power the generation of this show. If you want to dive deeper into the technical stacks we mentioned, or find the RSS feed to make sure you never miss an episode, head over to myweirdprompts.com.
If you're enjoying these deep dives, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify really helps us get the show in front of more people. We appreciate the support.
This has been My Weird Prompts. We'll catch you in the next one.
See ya!
This episode was produced using Google Gemini 3 Flash. Text-to-speech by Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from sloth